Jake Morrison opened his eyes and saw metal walls. His head hurt badly and his mouth was dry. The air smelled strange, like burning copper and something else he could not name. He tried to sit up, but his body felt heavy and slow. The room was small and gray. There was no window and only one door. A thin light came from panels in the ceiling. Jake looked at his hands and saw they were not tied. But when he touched the walls, they felt warm and seemed to push back against his fingers. He remembered the attack. His ship had been near the Vega system, making maps of new space routes for human colonies. Jake was the navigator on the small scout ship called the Mercury. There had been 5 crew members, including himself. Captain Lisa Carter had sent them to check if the area was safe for larger ships to pass through. Then the enemy ships had appeared from nowhere. They were big and dark, shaped like giant triangles. The Mercury's shields had failed in seconds. Jake remembered the captain shouting orders over the radio. He remembered fire and smoke filling the bridge. He remembered his friend Ben Rodriguez trying to fix the engines while explosions shook the ship. After that, everything went black. Jake stood up slowly and walked around the small room. His legs felt weak, but they worked. The door had no handle that he could see. He pushed against it, but nothing happened. The walls were smooth and cold except for the strange warmth when he pressed hard against them. He was alone. This meant his crew was either dead or in other rooms like this one. Jake hoped they were alive, but deep in his heart he knew better. The attack had been too fast and too strong. The Mercury was not a warship. It was made for exploring, not fighting. Jake sat down on the floor and tried to think clearly. He had been trained for this situation at the Space Academy. If captured, give only basic information. Name, rank, and homeworld. Nothing about military plans or colony locations. Nothing about human technology or ship numbers. The door opened without any sound. 2 beings walked into the room. Jake had never seen aliens like these before. The first one was tall and covered in dark green scales. Its head was long like a snake's, but with 2 yellow eyes that looked very smart. It wore a dark uniform with metal symbols on the chest. The second alien was different. It was shorter, and its skin seemed to glow with a soft blue light. Its face was narrow with large silver eyes. It moved like it was floating instead of walking. This one carried a small device that blinked with different colored lights. The tall green alien spoke first. Its voice was deep and rough. "Human, I am Commander Zektar of the Catherian 4th Fleet. You are a prisoner on the battleship Shadowbane. You will answer our questions." Jake looked at both aliens but did not speak. The glowing one moved closer and pointed its device at him. The lights on the device changed from blue to red. "My name is Dr. Villana," the glowing alien said. Its voice was soft and musical. "I study other species for the Galactic Council. Your brain patterns are very interesting. Much different from other humans we have examined." "Jake Morrison," Jake said clearly. "Navigator, Human Colonial Fleet, that is all I will tell you." Commander Zektar made a sound like angry breathing. "Your ship was in restricted space, human. It was gathering information about our patrol routes. This makes you a spy." "We were mapping safe passage routes for civilian ships," Jake said. "We did not know this area was claimed by anyone." Dr. Villana was still pointing her device at Jake. She looked at the small screen on it, and her silver eyes grew wider. "Commander, his neural activity is very strange. These patterns should not exist in a human brain." "What does that mean?" Zektar asked. "I am not sure yet. But humans are supposed to be a simple species. They have only been in space for a short time. This one shows brain activity that is much more complex than it should be." Jake felt his head start to hurt again. The pain was sharp and seemed to come from behind his eyes. He tried not to show it, but Dr. Villana's device started blinking faster. "Are you feeling pain?" she asked. Jake did not answer. The commander stepped closer and Jake could smell something like burnt metal coming from the alien skin. "Your people think they can expand into any space they want," Zektar said. "But you are weak and few in number. This galaxy belongs to older and stronger species. Humans are like children playing with dangerous toys." The pain in Jake's head got worse. Sometimes when he was very stressed, he would get headaches like this. His grandmother had told him it ran in their family. She had strange dreams and sometimes knew things before they happened. Jake had always thought it was just old stories. "We will ask you questions every day," the commander said. "We want to know about human military strength. We want to know where your colonies are located. We want to know how many ships you have and what weapons they carry." "I told you what I will say," Jake replied. "Nothing more." Dr. Villana was still watching her device. Commander, I would like to study this human more carefully. His brain shows activity in areas that should be dormant. This could be important for understanding human development. Do what you want with him, Zektar said. But get me the information I need. The High Command wants to know if humans are a real threat or just another weak species to be controlled. Both aliens left the room and the door closed behind them. Jake was alone again. He sat back down on the floor and held his head in his hands. The pain was getting worse, and now he was seeing strange lights behind his closed eyes. He tried to remember what his grandmother had taught him about dealing with the headaches. She had shown him how to breathe slowly and empty his mind of all thoughts. She called it meditation and said it was an old family skill passed down through many generations. Jake closed his eyes and tried to breathe the way she had shown him. Slowly in, slowly out. Think of nothing but the air going in and out of his lungs. The pain in his head began to fade, but something else started to happen. He began to see things that were not in the room with him. Bright points of light that moved and pulsed like they were alive. They seemed very far away, but also very clear. In his mind, he could hear something that might have been voices, but they were too distant to understand. Jake opened his eyes quickly. The strange vision disappeared and he was back in the gray room. But now he felt different. The lights in the ceiling seemed brighter and he could hear a low humming sound that had not been there before. He did not know what was happening to him, but he was certain of one thing. The aliens thought they had captured an ordinary human prisoner. They had no idea what they had really found. 2 weeks had passed since Jake woke up in the alien prison cell. Every day, Commander Zektar and Dr. Valana came to ask him questions. Every day, Jake gave them the same answer. His name, his job, and nothing more. But the questions were getting harder to ignore. Zektar had started using devices that made loud noises and bright flashing lights. He had also brought in machines that could make Jake feel very cold or very hot without touching him. How many ships guard the human colony at Alpha Centauri? Zektar asked for the 10th time that day. Jake sat quietly and looked at the wall. The cold machine was running and his breath came out in white clouds. His fingers were starting to turn blue. Your silence helps no one, human, the commander said. We already know where most of your colonies are located. We could destroy them easily if we wanted to. Dr. Valana was watching her device again. She had been doing this during every visit. The small screen showed patterns of color that changed as Jake's thoughts changed. Commander, his brain activity is becoming more unusual each day, she said. The patterns are unlike anything I have seen in any species. They are becoming stronger. Jake's head hurt again. The pain had been getting worse each time the aliens used their machines on him. But during the pain, he sometimes saw those strange lights again. They were getting clearer and seemed to be trying to tell him something. What do you mean stronger? Zektar asked. The electrical activity in his brain has increased by 40% since we captured him. Humans should not be capable of this. Their brains are too simple. The commander turned off the cold machine and Jake felt warmth return to his body. Maybe stress is changing his brain function. No, Dr. Valana said, looking closely at her device. This is not stress response. This is evolution happening in real time. His brain is developing new connections that should not exist. After the aliens left, Jake lay down on the floor and tried to ignore the pain in his head. The meditation technique his grandmother had taught him was the only thing that helped. But each time he meditated, the strange visions got stronger. Jake closed his eyes and began breathing slowly, in and out, in and out. He let his mind become empty and quiet. The pain faded away, and something else took its place. Suddenly, Jake was not in the prison cell anymore. He was floating in empty space, but he was not afraid. Around him were thousands of bright lights that pulsed with life. They were stars, but they were also something more. They were alive and aware, and they knew he was there. The stars were singing to him, not with voices he could hear, but with something deeper. Their song was made of light and energy and gravity waves that reached across impossible distances. Jake could feel their nuclear fires burning inside their cores. He could sense the planets that circled them and the empty space between them. One star was closer than the others. It was big and red and very old. Jake could feel its thoughts, ancient and slow but full of wisdom. It was trying to tell him something important, but the message was too big for his human mind to understand all at once. Then Jake felt something else. Pain, sharp and sudden. He opened his eyes and was back in the gray room. But something was wrong. The lights in the ceiling were flashing on and off in a pattern. They would flash 3 times, pause, then flash 3 times again. Jake sat up and looked around. The lights kept flashing in the same pattern. He counted them. 3 short, 3 short, pause. 3 short, 3 short, pause. It was like the star in his vision had been trying to communicate. Across the ship, alarms started ringing. Dr. Valana was in her laboratory when the electrical problem started. Her computers shut down and restarted 3 times in a row. The lights in her lab began flashing in the same strange pattern that was happening all over the ship. She grabbed her scanning device and ran to Jake's cell. The readings she saw made her eyes grow wide with shock. The human's brain was producing electrical signals so strong they were affecting the ship's power systems. "This is impossible," she whispered to herself. In the command center of the Shadowbane, Zektar was shouting at his engineers. "Fix these power problems now. We cannot have our systems failing during a patrol mission." "Sir, we have checked everything twice," the chief engineer said. "There is nothing wrong with our equipment. The electrical interference is coming from inside the ship." "From where?" "Level 7, Section 12. The prisoner detention area." Zektar's yellow eyes grew narrow. The human. Far away in human space, Captain Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the colony ship Endeavor. She was studying star charts and patrol reports, trying to find any clue about where Jake and his crew had been taken. "Captain, I think I found something," said Ben Rodriguez. He was Jake's best friend and the best navigator in the human fleet besides Jake himself. Ben had been working without sleep for 2 weeks, calculating possible routes the enemy ships might have taken. "Show me," Lisa said. Ben pointed to a section of the star map. "The Catherians have 3 main patrol routes through this area. If they captured the Mercury near Vega, they would most likely take prisoners to their base at Wolf 359, or to one of their patrol ships. How can we find out which one? We could send scout ships to check both locations, but that would take time and they might see us coming." Lisa looked at the star chart and thought about Jake. He was more than just a crew member to her. He was like a younger brother, and she would not leave him to die in an alien prison. "Prepare 2 scout teams," she ordered. "We are going to find our people." Back on the Shadowbane, Jake was discovering that his meditations were becoming deeper and more powerful. When he closed his eyes now, he could sense things far beyond his cell. He could feel the ship moving through space. He could sense the positions of nearby stars and even guess which direction they were traveling. The headaches still came, but they were different now. Instead of just pain, they brought information. Jake was starting to understand that the stars were not just balls of burning gas. They were conscious beings, ancient beyond human understanding, and they had been waiting for someone like him. During his evening meditation, Jake reached out with his mind toward the nearest star. It was a yellow sun, much like Earth's sun, but smaller and older. When his thoughts touched it, the star responded. Jake felt a wave of warmth and welcome that had nothing to do with temperature. The star was happy to find him. It had been lonely for a very long time. Jake opened his eyes and saw that the lights in his cell were glowing brighter than before. Not flashing this time, but steady and warm like sunlight. On the wall opposite him, he could see his own shadow, but the shadow seemed to have a faint glow around its edges. He stood up and walked to the wall. When he put his hand against the metal, he could feel electricity moving through it. But the electricity was not from the ship's power systems. It was coming from him. Dr. Valana was studying the data from her scans when she made a discovery that changed everything. Hidden in human DNA were genetic sequences that matched patterns found in the oldest stellar phenomena in the galaxy. The sequences were inactive in most humans, but in Jake, they were waking up. She ran more tests and found something even more incredible. The genetic patterns were not random. They formed a code, and the code matched the mathematical relationships between star positions and gravitational fields. "By the ancient gods," she whispered, "humans are not just another species. They are connected to the stars themselves. Jake did not know about Dr. Velana's discovery, but he was learning to feel the truth of it. Each night his connection to the cosmos grew stronger. He could sense the heartbeat of distant suns and feel the slow dance of planets around them. The aliens thought they had captured a simple prisoner. They had no idea they were holding someone who could speak with the stars themselves. And the stars were starting to listen. Dr. Velana could not sleep. For 3 days she had been studying the data from Jake's genetic scans. What she found made her question everything she knew about life in the galaxy. Human DNA contained sequences that should not exist. These genetic patterns matched the electromagnetic signatures of stars that had died billions of years ago. They matched the gravitational waves produced by black holes. They matched the quantum frequencies of pulsars. It was as if humans had evolved not just on their home planet, but in harmony with cosmic forces that existed long before any known civilization. This cannot be correct, she said to her computer, but every test gave the same results. Humans were not the simple species everyone believed them to be. Dr. Velana looked at her scans of Jake's brain activity. The patterns were becoming more complex every day. Areas of his mind that should have been empty were now buzzing with electrical activity. It was like watching a sleeping giant wake up. She made a decision that would change everything. She would share her findings with Commander Zektar, even though she knew he would not want to hear them. In the interrogation room, Zektar was losing patience. It had been 3 weeks since they captured the human, and he still knew nothing useful about human military strength. "Bring the prisoner," he ordered his guards. Jake was brought into the room in metal restraints. He looked tired, but his eyes were still defiant. Dr. Velana noticed that the lights in the room seemed brighter when Jake entered, though she was sure no one had adjusted them. "Human," Zektar said, "this is your last chance to cooperate. Tell me about your military bases and I will make sure you are treated well. Refuse and I will have you thrown out of the airlock." Jake looked at the commander but said nothing. The pain in his head was worse today, but something else was different. He could feel the ship around him like it was part of his own body. He could sense the electrical systems and the metal walls and even the thoughts of the aliens in nearby rooms. "Your silence protects no one," Zektar continued. "We have already found 2 of your colonies. Our warships could destroy them before your people even know we are coming." Jake's restraints began to grow warm. Dr. Velana's scanning device started beeping rapidly. "Commander," she said quietly, "perhaps we should stop the session." "No," Zektar snapped. "I want answers." He leaned close to Jake's face. "Your people are weak and foolish. You think you can explore space like you own it. But this galaxy belongs to species that were traveling between stars before your ancestors learned to make fire." The beeping from Dr. Velana's device became a steady alarm. Jake's brain activity was spiking to levels that should have killed him. "You want to know about human military strength?" Jake said quietly. His voice sounded different, deeper than before. "You want to know what we are capable of?" Jake closed his eyes and something inside his mind broke open like a dam bursting. Suddenly, his awareness exploded outward from the ship. He could feel every star in the surrounding solar systems. He could sense their nuclear fires and the planets that orbited them. He could feel the empty space between them and the gravity waves that rippled through the cosmic ocean. The stars were not silent balls of gas. They were alive and conscious, and they had been waiting for him to find them. On the ship, every light began flashing in complex patterns. The gravity generators started making strange humming sounds. In the engine room, alarms began ringing as power levels fluctuated wildly. "What is happening?" Zektar shouted. Dr. Velana stared at her device in amazement. Jake's brain was producing electrical fields strong enough to affect the entire ship. But that was impossible. No biological mind could generate that much energy. Jake opened his eyes and they were glowing with a soft white light. "You asked what humans are capable of," he said. "Let me show you." In space around the shadow bane, something incredible began to happen. The nearest star, a red giant called Arcturus, suddenly flared brighter. The increase in brightness was visible even in daylight across dozens of nearby worlds. Then another star began to pulse. And another. Within minutes, every star in a 50-light-year radius was flashing in mathematical sequences. The patterns were clearly artificial, but they were coordinated across distances that should have made instant communication impossible. On the bridge of the Shadowbane, the navigation officer looked at his instruments in confusion. Sir, our position readings make no sense. According to the star positions, we should be in 3 different locations at the same time. That is impossible, Zektar said, but even as he spoke, he could see the stars outside pulsing like a giant communications network. In the interrogation room, Jake was surrounded by electrical energy that danced across his skin like blue fire. The metal restraints had melted away and he was floating a few inches above his chair. The stars know me, Jake said, and his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. They have been calling to my people for thousands of years. We just forgot how to listen. Dr. Villana was recording everything with shaking hands. This was not just first contact with a new species. This was contact with an intelligence that spanned the entire galaxy. How is this possible? She whispered. Jake turned to look at her and smiled. For a moment his eyes returned to normal and he looked like an ordinary human again. My grandmother used to tell me stories, he said. Stories about our family having special gifts. I thought they were just old tales. But when I meditate, when I reach out with my mind, the stars answer. Commander Zektar backed away from Jake in fear. You are not human. You are something else wearing human form. I am human, Jake replied. But humans are not what you think we are. We are the children of stars. We carry their songs in our DNA. Most of my people have forgotten, but some of us remember. All across the ship, crew members were reporting strange phenomena. Computer systems were receiving data transmissions from unknown sources. The ship's sensors were detecting gravitational anomalies that bent space and time in impossible ways. Even the artificial gravity was fluctuating, making some crew members feel lighter or heavier than normal. Dr. Villana realized that Jake was not just sensing the cosmos. He was communicating with it. The stellar responses proved that there was an intelligence network spanning the galaxy, one that recognized Jake as family. Commander, she said urgently, we need to contact the Galactic Council immediately. Why? Zektar asked, though his voice shook with fear. Because humans are not just another species. They are something we have never encountered before. And if this one human can communicate with stars across the galaxy, imagine what an entire human civilization could do. Jake slowly descended back to his chair. The electrical energy around him faded, but the glow in his eyes remained. I do not want to hurt anyone, he said, but you need to understand that humans are not your enemies. We are explorers and builders. We seek friendship, not conquest. Zektar looked at the reports coming in from across his ship. Every system was affected by whatever Jake had done. The navigation computer showed impossible readings. The communications array was receiving signals from stars that should not have been able to transmit data. What do you want? The commander asked. I want to go home, Jake said simply. I want to teach my people what I have learned. And I want to help bridge the gap between humanity and the other species of the galaxy. Dr. Villana was still watching her scanning device. Even though Jake appeared calm, his brain activity remained at extraordinary levels. Whatever had awakened in him was still active. The stellar responses are continuing, she reported. I am detecting coordinated activity from stars up to 200 light-years away. This is not random. There is a pattern to it, like a language. Jake nodded. They are talking about me. About humans. They are excited because they thought we would never remember our connection to them. Commander Zektar realized that his simple prisoner interrogation had become something much bigger and more dangerous. He was no longer dealing with a captured enemy soldier. He was dealing with a being who could apparently command the stars themselves. I must report this to the High Command, he said. Yes, Dr. Villana agreed. The Galactic Council needs to know about this immediately. This changes everything we thought we knew about humans and their place in the galaxy. Jake closed his eyes again and reached out to the stars with his mind. They welcomed him like old friends, sharing their ancient songs and cosmic wisdom. He was no longer just a prisoner on an alien ship. He was the first human in centuries to remember what his people truly were. And across human space, others were beginning to feel the awakening too. News of the strange stellar activity spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Within hours of Jake's demonstration, every major civilization was receiving reports of coordinated star behavior in their territories. On the homeworld of the Andromedan Empire, astronomers watched in amazement as their entire local star cluster began pulsing in mathematical sequences. The patterns were too complex to be natural and too coordinated to be coincidence. The crystalline collective, a species that had been silent for over 1,000 years, suddenly began transmitting messages to every known government. Their signal was simple but urgent. The awakened one has been found. The old prophecies are coming true. In the heart of galactic civilization, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the great chamber on Nexus Prime. They had not held an emergency meeting like this in over 2 centuries. The stellar anomalies began 3 standard hours ago, reported the Vulcarian science minister. Our best scientists cannot explain how stars separated by hundreds of light years are communicating instantly with each other. It is not just communication, added the representative from the Aquatic Federation. The stars are creating gravitational lenses that focus radiation and bend space-time. Some of our ships have reported faster than light travel without using their hyperdrive engines. An ancient being moved slowly to the center of the chamber. High Counselor Thren was older than most civilizations and had seen the rise and fall of galactic empires. His species had been exploring space when humans were still living in caves. I know what this is, Thren said, his voice carrying the weight of eons. I have seen the signs before, recorded in the oldest archives of our civilization. The chamber fell silent. When Thren spoke of ancient history, everyone listened. Before our current galactic community existed, there were beings who could speak directly with the consciousness of stars. They were called the Star Speakers. They could influence gravity, communicate across impossible distances, and travel through space by asking the stars themselves for help. What happened to them? Asked the Terran representative. They disappeared. Some say they evolved beyond physical form and became one with the cosmic forces they controlled. Others believe they simply left this galaxy to explore beyond our reach. But they left behind prophecies that one day their descendants would return. Thran looked around the chamber at the worried faces of the assembled representatives. The humans are those descendants, he said. On the Shadowbane, Jake's abilities continued to grow stronger every day. He could now sense ships and planets across vast distances. When he concentrated, he could feel the thoughts of crew members in other parts of the vessel. He could even influence the ship's electrical systems without trying. Dr. Vellana had been studying him constantly, taking readings and recording every change in his brain patterns. What she found amazed her more each day. Your genetic code is activating sequences that have been dormant for thousands of years, she told Jake during one of their sessions. It is like watching evolution happen in fast motion. Jake sat quietly in his cell, which no longer felt like a prison. The walls could not contain his consciousness when it reached out to touch the stars. He could travel across the galaxy in his mind, visiting distant worlds and learning their secrets. My grandmother always said our family was different, Jake told her. She had dreams about stars and sometimes knew things before they happened. I thought it was just imagination. It was genetic memory, Dr. Vellana explained. Your ancestors carried the knowledge of star communication in their DNA. Modern humans lost the ability to access it, but stress and isolation seem to have triggered its return in you. Meanwhile, across human space, Captain Lisa Carter and Ben Rodriguez were tracking the Shadowbane, using the stellar disturbances as a guide. The stars themselves seemed to be helping them, creating gravitational effects that sped their journey and pointed them in the right direction. This is impossible, Ben said, looking at his navigation readings. According to our instruments, we should still be 2 days away from the last known position of the enemy ship. But the stars are bending space around us. We are covering distances that should take weeks. Lisa studied the star charts on her command screen. Several nearby stars were pulsing in patterns that seemed almost like signals. One pattern repeated every few minutes, 3 long pulses followed by 2 short ones, then 3 long pulses again. Ben, does that pulse pattern mean anything to you? Ben looked at the readings and his eyes grew wide. It is a navigation code, one that Jake and I developed for emergencies. 3 long means I am here. 2 short means come quickly. 3 long means I am here again. Jake is calling to us through the stars themselves. On the Shadowbane. Not everyone was happy about their unusual prisoner. Half the crew had begun to worship Jake as some kind of divine being. The other half wanted him destroyed before he could use his powers against them. Security Chief Mordek was one of those who thought Jake was too dangerous to live, Commander. Sektar, he said during a private meeting. This human is a threat to our entire species. If he can control stars, what stops him from making our sun explode? The High Council has ordered us to keep him alive until they can study him, Zektar replied, but his voice showed he was also worried. The High Council does not understand what we are dealing with. This creature could destroy entire star systems with a thought. In his cell, Jake could hear their conversation through the ship's electrical systems. He felt sad that they were afraid of him. He had no desire to hurt anyone. All he wanted was to go home and learn more about the gifts his people possessed. Dr. Villana came to visit him alone that evening. She had made a decision that could cost her career or even her life. "Jake," she said quietly, "I want to help you escape." Jake looked at her in surprise. "Why? You are one of them." "I am a scientist first," she replied. "What you represent is the most important discovery in galactic history. But some of my people want to destroy you out of fear. That would be a tragedy for all intelligent life. What do you want in return?" "I want to learn. I want to understand how your abilities work. I want to help bridge the gap between humans and the rest of the galaxy." Jake considered her offer. Through his connection to the stars, he could sense her thoughts. She was telling the truth. Her desire to learn was stronger than her loyalty to her own species. "I can teach you some of what I know," Jake said. "But first, you need to understand that humans do not want to conquer or control anyone. We seek knowledge and friendship." Dr. Villana activated her scanning device and began recording. "Show me." Jake closed his eyes and reached out with his mind. He touched the consciousness of the nearest star and asked it to send a gentle message to Dr. Villana's homeworld. Across the galaxy, the star that gave light to her planet began to pulse with a warm, welcoming rhythm. The message was simple but clear: peace, friendship, curiosity, and hope. "By the ancient gods," Dr. Villana whispered, "you just sent a message to my homeworld instantly across thousands of light years." "The stars do not recognize the boundaries that divide our species," Jake explained. "To them, all conscious life is part of the same cosmic family. They are happy to carry messages between friends." Dr. Villana realized that everything her people believed about the universe was wrong. Space was not empty and hostile. It was alive and friendly, filled with ancient intelligences that wanted to help all life grow and flourish. "I will help you escape," she promised. "But in return, you must promise to teach your people to use their gifts wisely." "I promise," Jake said. "But first I need to contact my friends. They are coming to rescue me, but they are walking into a trap. The stars tell me that other ships are moving to intercept them." High above them, Captain Lisa Carter and the Endeavor were indeed heading into danger. Catherian reinforcements were moving to block their path, and a battle was about to begin that could start a war between two species. But Jake had allies now that the Catherians had never imagined. The stars themselves were watching, and they were ready to help protect the first star speaker to awaken in over 1,000 years. The real test was about to begin. The Endeavor dropped out of hyperspace near the coordinates where the stars had guided them. Captain Lisa Carter expected to find the Shadowbane alone, but what she saw through the viewscreen made her gasp. Dozens of ships from across the galaxy had gathered in the same location. There were sleek vessels from the Andromedan Empire, crystal ships of the Collective, organic-looking craft from species she had never seen before. Some appeared friendly, others had weapons powered and ready. Captain Ben Rodriguez said from his navigation station, "I am reading 43 different ship types. Most of them are unknown to our databases." "Are they hostile?" Lisa asked. "I do not think so. They are keeping their distance from each other and from us. It looks like they are all here for the same reason we are." On the Shadowbane, alarms were ringing as crew members detected the massive gathering of ships around them. Commander Zektar stood on his bridge watching the tactical display with growing concern. "Sir, we are outnumbered 50-1, his weapons officer reported. "Some of these ships are from species that have not been seen in our space for centuries." In his cell, Jake felt the arrival of each ship through his connection to the stars. The cosmic intelligence he had touched was calling beings from across the galaxy to witness something important. His capture had not been an accident. The stars had guided events to bring him to this moment. Jake reached out with his mind, touching the consciousness of the ancient red star he had first communed with. Through it, he could sense the thoughts and intentions of every being in the gathering fleet. They had not come to fight. They had come because they recognized the signs of something their ancestors had spoken of in legends and prophecies. The return of the star speakers meant that an ancient threat was stirring, one that could only be faced by beings who could speak directly with the cosmos itself. Dr. Valana came to Jake's cell with urgency in her movements. "Jake, you need to know something. High Counselor Thren is here. He wants to meet with you." "The Ancient One?" Jake asked. "I can feel his presence. His mind is very old and very wise. He knows things about your people that even you do not know. But first we need to get you out of this cell. Some of the crew are planning to kill you before you can leave the ship." Jake stood and walked to the cell door. For the first time since his capture, he pressed his hand against the lock mechanism. Electrical energy flowed from his fingers into the circuits and the door opened with a soft click. "I could have left any time I wanted," Jake said quietly. "But I needed to understand what was happening to me first. Now I do." They walked through the corridors of the Shadowbane together. Crew members they passed either bowed to Jake as if he were a god or stepped away in fear. Some reached for weapons but hesitated when they saw the soft glow that surrounded him. In the ship's main conference room, High Counselor Thren waited with Commander Zektar and several other senior officers. The ancient being was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished stone and eyes that held the wisdom of eons. "Star Speaker," Thren said as Jake entered the room. "I have waited my entire life to meet one of your kind." "I am just a human navigator," Jake replied. "I do not understand most of what is happening to me." "You are much more than that," Thren said kindly. "Your people are the children of the first beings to achieve harmony with stellar consciousness. That gift has been sleeping in your species for thousands of years, but it was always there, waiting to awaken." Thren gestured to a large screen that showed the gathering fleet outside. "Every species here has legends about the Star Speakers. Some call them the First Ones, others name them the Cosmic Gardeners. But all our stories agree on one thing: they will return when the galaxy faces its greatest threat." Jake felt a chill run through him. "What threat?" "Something moves in the empty space between galaxies," Thren explained. "Our deepest space sensors have detected it approaching. It consumes stellar energy and leaves only darkness behind. We believe it destroyed the Andromeda Galaxy 12 million years ago." Dr. Valana looked at her readings in amazement. Jake's brain activity is spiking again. The stellar responses are intensifying. Jake closed his eyes and reached out to the stars with all his strength. The cosmic intelligence welcomed him and shared its ancient memories. He saw vast creatures of living darkness moving through the void between galaxies. He saw entire star systems going dark as something drained their energy. He understood why the stars had called to him. "The stars are afraid," Jake said quietly. "They need allies who can speak their language and coordinate their defenses. That is why my abilities awakened. That is why I was brought here." Commander Zektar, who had been listening silently, stepped forward. "What can we do? How do we fight something that can destroy entire galaxies?" Jake opened his eyes and looked at the assembled aliens. "First, we stop fighting each other. The enemy feeds on conflict and division. Second, I need to return to my people and teach them to remember their heritage. Humans are not the only species with dormant cosmic abilities." He turned to Dr. Valana. "Your research shows that many species have genetic traces of star consciousness. The abilities just need to be awakened. How long do we have?" Thren asked. Jake consulted the stellar intelligence again. "The darkness will reach the outer edges of our galaxy in 50 Earth years. We have that long to prepare." Captain Lisa Carter's voice came over the ship's communication system. "This is Captain Carter of the Human Colonial Fleet. We request immediate contact with our crew member, Jake Morrison." Commander Zektar looked at Jake uncertainly. "What do you want me to tell them?" "Tell them I am safe and that I choose to work with you to protect the galaxy. But first I want to show you something." Jake reached out with his mind toward the Endeavor. He could sense Ben Rodriguez at his navigation station and Captain Lisa Carter on the bridge. Gently he touched their consciousness with his own, sharing a small portion of his cosmic awareness. On the Endeavor, Ben suddenly felt his mind expand beyond the ship. He could sense the positions of every star in the surrounding systems. He could feel their nuclear fires and hear their ancient songs. "Lisa," he called out, his voice full of wonder. "I can feel them. I can feel the stars." Captain Lisa Carter experienced the same awakening. For the first time in her life, she understood that space was not empty. It was filled with consciousness and intelligence that had been trying to speak with humanity for generations. "My God," she whispered. "We never knew. We never listened." Jake smiled as he felt their minds opening to the cosmic truth. Every human has this potential. Some stronger than others, but all possess the basic ability to commune with stellar consciousness. Over the following hours, Jake worked with Dr. Valana and High Counselor Thren to understand and control his abilities. He learned that he could share his cosmic awareness with others, temporarily awakening their dormant gifts. More importantly, he learned that his connection to the stars made him a bridge between species. Commander Zektar, who had begun as Jake's captor, became one of his strongest supporters. The Catherian officer witnessed Jake's wisdom and restraint, understanding that humans sought cooperation, not conquest. I will recommend to the High Command that we establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity, Zektar announced. Any species capable of producing star speakers deserves our respect and alliance. 3 days later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the Endeavor, finally free and heading home. But he was no longer the same person who had been captured weeks ago. He was humanity's first stellar speaker in over 1,000 years, tasked with teaching his people to remember their cosmic heritage. Captain Lisa Carter and Ben Rodriguez stood beside him, both still learning to process their new awareness of the living universe around them. "It is incredible," Lisa said, watching the stars pulse with gentle light as they passed. "All this time they were trying to talk to us and we thought they were just balls of gas." "My grandmother would have loved this," Jake said. "She always told me that our family had a connection to the stars. I wish she could see what we have become." Ben was practicing his new abilities, reaching out to nearby stars and receiving their welcoming responses. "Jake, I can sense other humans starting to awaken. People across our colonies are reporting strange dreams and new awareness." Jake nodded. "The cosmic consciousness is calling to all of us now. We will need every awakened human we can find to face what is coming." On the Endeavor's main screen, Earth appeared as a blue jewel against the darkness. But Jake could see more than just the planet now. He could sense the sleeping potential in every human on the surface, waiting to be awakened. The galaxy had 47 years to prepare for the approaching darkness. It would need every star speaker, every species, and every star working together to survive. Jake Morrison had started this journey as a simple navigator on a reconnaissance mission. He was returning as humanity's bridge to the cosmos and the first guardian of an ancient alliance between conscious beings and the living stars themselves. The real adventure was just beginning.